now we'll have the pleasure of hearing from Rabbi Norman Lamm.
Well, normally I'm on the other side, and I know how some of you feel when you're on this side of the receiving of honors. I now sympathize with you. I thank you all for the praise, for the encomia, for the exaggerations, for the extravagance, for the flattery, for the compliments. I'm grateful to all of you who came in such impressive numbers. Believe me, you make it difficult for me to avoid the sin of gava. I confess, until I heard all these wonderful things this evening, both from this podium and in circulating, I was wondering whether this evening was to be a premature Shalom, Tzeischem L'Shalom, or a belated Baruch Shebtarani. I hope it's the former and not the latter. I thank you too for the lovely gift. Many years ago, there was a wonderful Rosh Yeshiva in the high school in TA. His name was Rabbi Steinberg, very wonderful Talmid Chacham, and an old-time Rebbe. And the custom in his class was that every Hanukkah time, the students would present him with a check and put it under the Gemara, so when he came to the shir, he would take the Gemara and find the check there. And this was given by Masorah, by tradition, from year to year, class to class. But in one year, it happened that the class had a group of young men who were, a little different, a little mischievous. And they came to the class, and Rabbi Steinberg came in on the Hanukkah day, and he looked under the Gemara, there was nothing there. And he quickly turned around, maybe it's on the chair, it wasn't there. He picked up other svarim on the desk, it wasn't there. He was getting panicky. So he picked up the Gemara upside down and shook it, and out came the envelope. And he turned to the boys and says, "Boys, das aber gar nicht expected." So, Mr. Bravman, das aber gar nicht expected. I'm enormously flattered and humbled by a decision to name the Kol Yodin for me. My father, Oliver Shalom, always wanted me to get Yodin, but when I was learning in yeshiva, there was no Yodin that was being given. It was instituted later. I am sure that he would have been proud of you. And come to think of it, I speak of my mother too. My mother always wanted me to be a doctor. I just hope she wasn't disappointed that I wasn't the kind of doctor she thought I would be. Merely a PhD. I know that many of you have expressed concern about my announcement of retirement in another 14 months in Yetz Hashem. I've been told and pleaded with to reconsider. So I would like to make this official announcement. I do not intend to step down from the presidency of Yeshiva. I intend to step up from the presidency of Yeshiva. And I hope that when the time comes that I am chancellor, I will not abandon Yeshiva. I never will. I will always be available for guidance and for help as long as that guidance and help is desired. My remarks this evening will concern the past, the present, and the future. And let me begin with the past. I conclude this year not only 25 years of service as president of Yeshiva University and RIETS in Rosh Yeshiva, but 50 years of Avodas HaKodesh, of sacred service to the Jewish community, especially the Torah community. The first quarter of a century was spent in the rabbinate as the rabbi of the Jewish Center, most of the time, and the second quarter of a century here at Yeshiva. But because I believe that to live is to learn, and when you stop learning, you stop living, I wish to summarize certain lessons from my combined experiences. Perhaps they may be of relevance to you, to others, even those older and wiser than myself. But I want to learn something from this and articulate it. So I share with you some of my hard-earned lessons of the past 50 years. They may be banal, they may be cliches, but that's what I learned. I learned that all idols have clay feet, that every human being, no matter how low on the ladder of success, possesses sparks of greatness. I learned that some of the mightiest have fatal weaknesses, and some of the weakest have hidden sources of surprising strength. That in almost every closet lies a skeleton, and even in the hardest of hearts lie grains of goodness and molecules of compassion. I learned that the smart aren't always wise, and the wise aren't always smart. That the poor are often strong, and the rich sometimes weak. That the pious can be tempted, and the sinner is tempered. I learned of the secret follies of the sophisticated, and the flashes of insight that sometimes come from ordinary folk. Well, what did all this knowledge bring me? It taught me personally to judge people with understanding and compassion. It taught me that foolishness, weakness, ignorance, spite, and envy are all parts of the human endowment and human condition, and that we must all of us struggle to overcome them. Some are more successful than others. No one is ever permanently the clear, triumphant victor over these tendencies. And I learned that every human being has the capacity for decency and goodness and compassion and friendship and love and moral excellence. And therefore I must be tolerant and respectful and civil even to those with whom I profoundly disagree. All this really is something I learned, thank you, something I learned when I was a youngster. It took me all this time to realize this truth, that speaking of Torah, that its ways are the ways of pleasantness and all its paths are the paths of peace. So aggressiveness and anger and rage and arrogance simply do not fulfill that purpose. In my work for Yeshiva University, I benefited greatly from the decency and generosity of spirit of countless individuals. And I also, in the course of my career, suffered a number of bizyonos, of insults, of unfair and derogatory criticism on behalf of my community, my school, my people, those whom I love and I champion. And I am an equal opportunity target. I get it from the right and they get it from the left. And I don't mind, because the tolerance of Darkei Noam that I learned these 50 years lead me to forgive even those who would never forgive me. And I tell you, I would suffer the same slings and arrows again gladly on behalf of what I believe in, what you believe in, on behalf of us. I will be mekabel, yisudim, bi'ahava, because one never tires of defending one's home. Bi'ahava, and yeshiva is my home. I turn now to the present. I cannot impress you with the importance of what RIETS is doing. And even if you think you know, even if I think that I know, we should know more. Let me share with you a few reports by outside observers. One of them I shared with another group, but it's worth hearing all of them. The first one is a letter from a yeshiva alumnus who is in Israel, and who received a letter from a non-alumnus who was this distinguished lawyer in Yerushalayim. He writes, a co-worker of mine happened to be speaking with Rav B, the Rosh Yeshiva of a yeshiva on the other side of the Green Line, who told him, whenever I'm on an airplane and I see someone carrying a briefcase with a laptop computer and a Gemara, I know that that is a Yeshiva University graduate. Rav B said, he watches these men with envy. They spend part of the trip working on the computers, part of the trip reading business reports, and part of the trip learning Gemara. Rabbi said he is envious that neither he, his yeshiva, nor any other in Israel can produce this type of individual. . The second is a letter I received a week and a half ago. It came handwritten on 2 scraps of paper, and I had difficulty reading it, by a rabbi whom I don't know, who had just returned from a lengthy stay in the New York Methodist Hospital. He wrote to me that he became acquainted with physicians who are yeshiva graduates, yeshiva background, some of whom treated him and some just talked to him. And he was astounded at the human touch, the professional competence, the sensitivity, the readiness to engage him in Divrei Torah. And he signs off the letter by saying, "Thank you, Yeshiva University, because Methodist Hospital is 3/4 of a bis medrash." The final item comes from me for someone who is not Jewish. A number of months ago, 5-6 months ago, a man called me and said he was sent by the London Daily Telegraph. He was a very learned fellow, who had not had much experience with Jews, but he was mystified, he was amazed, he was inspired by the mystery of the Jews. What makes these people tick? And so he got his newspaper to send him on a mission to learn what are Jews all about, what makes Jews Jewish. And he published it in 2 articles, a series of 2 articles in the London Daily Telegraph on April 10th and April 11th this year, just a few months ago. I'm going to read you only 3 or 4 paragraphs. The rest of it is also wonderful, but I don't want to take too much of your time. He says, "Nobody will ever begin to understand the Jews." And let me add this, that he came to me and I asked someone to take him into the Beis Medrash and to show him around the entire yeshiva. And this is his report. "Nobody will ever begin to understand the Jews until they have visited the yeshiva, a school for the study of Talmud, and seen hundreds of young men engaged in a passionate discussion of its text. It was 9 in the evening when I arrived at Yeshiva University in New York. A buzz of furious sound was coming from one of its libraries," he meant the Beis Medrash. "Here in a largish room were 400 young men, sitting in pairs across the desks, rather like chess players, and surrounded by piles of hefty tomes, arguing heatedly. It could scarcely have been more different from the obligatory silence of the Bodleian Library. They were all studying the Talmud line by line, and this was no exercise in dry scholarship. I soon realized I was in the presence of the fissile core of Judaism. I have never, in any university or school, seen such intellectual intensity, such absorption, such total fascination. They gained no extra credits for being there. All of them had already done either a full day of study or endured a long and bruising session on Wall Street. One of the people I talked to, an alumnus who was learning, was a merchant banker. Another, a derivatives trader at Goldman Sachs. That is what impressed a non-Jew who began to understand what Judaism is all about from seeing our young men in yeshiva and a Beis Medrash studying Gemara." So I say to you, let's cherish this great and historic institution. You will need it for your children and grandchildren, great-grandchildren. There's nothing quite like it any place in the world. Give it your love, give it your support. It's worthy of all our best efforts. And now let me turn to the future. First, an important detail, and then some general comments. Legally, Yeshiva University and RIETS are 2 separate corporate bodies. It is said correctly that RIETS, Yeshivas Rabbeinu Yitzchak Elchanan, is the heart of yeshiva. A heart is an organ that nowadays can be separated from the body. It can survive an operation whereby the heart is treated outside the body. But who wants to have the rest of his moral existence in such a precarious state? The heart belongs in the body. We must make every effort to see to it that we enhance good relationships and the heart integrated with the body. Yeshiva and RIETS will soon be choosing its future leadership for this combined institution. I have addressed and am addressing appropriate bodies, official bodies, on this matter in detail. But I feel that it's important to take you into my confidence and to speak to the yeshiva family and to the yeshiva community at large. When Moshe Rabbeinu prepared to step down from his leadership, I hope mine won't be exactly that way, he prayed, Yifkod Hashem Elokei Haruchos L'chol Basar Ish Al Ha'eda. He prayed that God, the Lord, the God of all ruchos, all spirits, of all human flesh, appoint a man to be over the congregation. What he said was, Elokei Haruchos, someone who has a variety of talents, a man for all seasons, in the plural. He wanted someone who can follow him and have all his talents, all his potencies, all his attributes to lead the people. Good request, but the Ribono Shel Olam's answer was much more realistic. He said, it's not necessary to have all spirits. You won't find that. Not everyone is a Moshe Rabbeinu. Allah's ba'enim and ishdo ba'kenim. No one has everything. And so he said to him, Kach lecha es Yoshua ben Nun ish asher ruach bo, in the singular. Take Yehoshua who has ruach. He doesn't have to have a variety of talents all at once, but he has to have spirit. He has to have passion. He has to have fire in the belly, as the Irish say. He has to have a dedication that transforms people and that allows them to follow him to the heights of Torah. It has not got to be someone who is complete at that time. And note, neither Moshe Rabbeinu nor the Ribono Shel Olam asked for a division of labor. One person to be a general, one person to be a Rosh Yeshiva, one person to be a Kohen Gadol. No. Ish, one man, to combine all of them, even if he doesn't have all ruchas at once, because no one I know ever did. I firmly believe that one person should occupy both presidencies. The dual presidency is the guarantee of smooth functioning for the entire institution. You cannot separate yeshiva from university without injuring yeshiva university. Divide them and you will have institutionalized the fundamental division between RIETS and yeshiva university, and even more significantly, between Torah and Mada. Yeshiva will not be able to overcome this kind of schizoid existence and still remain true to its mission. Moreover, I must tell you that a dual presidency, one person having both, is a symbol of the utmost importance, a symbol of the ultimate synergy of Torah and Mada. At the beginning of the crisis that we had in the early years of my presidency, when we were in desperate conditions, I was told that the dome on the main building, what is now the David Zeisman Hall, the dome was leaking terribly. It was in danger of collapse. And we could repair it, but the bill was very high. If I'm not mistaken, it was $250,000. We didn't have $250,000. We had millions and millions of dollars in debt. And I was told that the wisest thing is to cut it off, get rid of the dome. I thought about that a long time. I worried over it, and I decided that I can't do that. Let it leak. No matter we have to spend the money, we'll spend the money even though we don't have it. Why? Although it's logical to have gotten rid of it, but logic is not everything. I resisted because that building, our main building, the Zeisman building, is a landmark. And that dome is part of the mental picture all of us have. Take that down, and you have destroyed the mental image. And that would have harmed us, and therefore I resisted it. Without it, the symbol would have fallen. And if that is true of a mute piece of architecture, how much more so for the living leadership of this, our great home. The president should be an academician, and it should be a lamdan. He should have secular leadership in him, education, and he should be a rav. I must tell you, NYU, New York University, recently elected John Sexton as its president. Wouldn't it be nice if we upstage them? They have a sexton and we have a rabbi. Finally, let me leave you with a plea for all of us to cooperate, whether we are members of the faculty or students, board members, friends, supporters. Preserve the unique vision of our institution. Orthodoxy today is roughly divided into two camps. And before I describe them, I want to tell you we need both. There is great value and there is great dedication and great devotion in both camps. And who can tell in the long run which one will survive? I hope that both will. We owe it to the future to foster both. And even though we may not be in the Haredi camp, we have got to act to them with respect, with acknowledgement of what they are, what they can be, and knowing that despite all that goes on sometimes in contemporary newspapers, it is a repository of great devotion to Torah and to Yiras Shamayim and to Chesed. That having been said, the Haredi world today, with whom we differ on details because there is so much more we have in common than that which separates us. We must react to them with respect and cooperation. They are people who believe in being more inward. They do not accept the legitimacy of secular studies except for vocational reasons, for parnasa. They are skeptical of Medinas Yisrael, although they are devoted to Eretz Yisrael, and so on. Our vision is rooted in Torah as we understand it. It means that we believe in Torah Amada, that we are utterly devoted to Torah, and we are not strangers to the word of Chachmas HaOlam, of Mada. We believe in maximum openness to all Jews, all Jews. We believe that the state of Israel is a very significant part of our lives, and we owe it our allegiance, and we have universal concerns. And the roots of this distinction between both camps are as much psychological as they are philosophical. This Shabbos we're going to read Pasha Shlach. You've heard that several times already this evening, where Moshe is commanded to send spies, Meraglim, to look over the land of Canaan before they enter it and to check it out. And Moshe gives the spies their commission. He says to them, Mahi, take a look at the land and see what it's like. And the people who are in it, are they strong or are they weak? Is it sparsely populated or is it a large population that lives there? How about the land itself? Is it good and fertile or is it barren? And the cities where they live, are they open camps, encampments, or are they in fortresses? The 12 spies went, and as you know, 10 of them came back with a majority opinion that it's impossible, and 2, Kalev and Yoshua, said, we can do it. The report of the majority was, Efes ki az ha'am hayoshe ba'aretz, the people there are strong, v'ha'odim b'tzuros gedolos ma'od, and the cities are heavily fortified. Now, what is your conclusion if you find that the cities are very well fortified? The logical conclusion, the rational conclusion is, we can't do this. We'll never make it. And indeed, that's what they said. On the other hand, Kalev and Yoshua said, we've got to go ahead. We can conquer it. We can do it. We can inherit this land. But Anoshim Asher Oluimo, but the others, the 10 others said, Lo nuchal la'alos el ha'am, we can't do this, ki chazaku mimeno, they are too strong for us. So here was a debate, and I have 2 questions about this. Because you know the result of the majority report was disastrous. So that the whole problem of Meraglim, the Chet Meraglim, is on par with the Chet of Masa Ego. My question is, first, the spies were telling the truth. They were telling the truth. They gave an honest report. That's what Moshe wanted them to do, to come back with an honest report. Second, what was the debate between Yoshua and Kalev on one side and the 10 Meraglim on the other side? Was it merely a question of strategy or just the impressions that they were made? Or is there something deeper? And the answer is, there was something much more profound. There were profound differences of interpretation and approach. The majority felt that a fortress is by nature impenetrable. You cannot conquer a fortress by a horde of yesterday's slaves coming into the country. It was impenetrable and therefore give up. And open, had it been open, then it would have been conquerable. They could have taken over the country. That was their point of view. But Moshe and Kalev and Yahushua had the reverse opinion. Rashi quotes the Medrash in a remarkable Medrash. Siman Masalehem. Moshe gave them a sign. He said, Im bifrazim yoshvin chazakim heim, shesomchen el gvurasam. If they live in open cities, it's a sign that they're powerful and self-assured. They don't have to have walls around them. V'im b'mivtzarim or b'orim b'tzurosem yoshvim chaloshim heim. If they are holed up in a fortress, that is a sign that they are weak and we can take them over. Just the reverse. We of Yeshiva University and RIETS agree with the minority, not with the majority opinion. We hold with Rashi that the correct interpretation of Moses' charge was that openness is a symptom and a sign of courage and confidence. And living in a fortress betrays fear and frailty. I have no complaints against those who prefer to live in a fortress with a fortress psychology. God bless them. I certainly have no sympathy with those who are so open without any kind of internal structure that they would leave us open to an onslaught of the narcissistic and hedonistic and vulgar qualities of our contemporary society. But we believe that a fortress is a sign, a confession of diffidence and fear. And an openness, an open city, is a sign of confidence and courage. Our yeshiva pioneered Torah Amada, the confluence of Torah and culture, an openness to ideas and an openness to other people, to inclusiveness. That is our strength, and that is which way we must continue. And I plead with you, do not be discouraged by the pessimists who tell us that we are the last of the Mohicans. No way. No way. Do what that gentleman from the Daily Telegraph did. Come to our Bris Medrash any night of the week, certainly during the day, but any night, and listen to the cold Torah. You will see how strong we really are. Listen to the young man who spoke earlier to Rabbi Soloveitchik, and you have an inkling, one star among many stars. This is what we are doing. We are on our way. We have been on our way, producing Torah Mother generations, 3 generations or 4 already. We have a sense of openness, a sense of courage, and we are going to continue that for a long time to come. So don't be discouraged by pessimists or demoralized by Jeremiahs. If others say to us, Lo nuchal la'alos, ki chazaku mimenu, we can't do it because others are strong, the world is too strong, we say, Olo na'ale, ki yachol nuchala, we will continue, we will rise, and we will conquer. Friends, we are bold enough and self-assured enough to say that Torah Amada means understanding the relationships and the tension and the creative synthesis of Torah and Mada on the highest levels of Mada. Not just Torah uparnosa. It's not just a matter of making a living, although that's very good. We know there are risks, but there are risks in everything. There is no life without risks. When the Rav Zatzal was sent by his parents to the University of Berlin to study, they did not send him there to study a trade. He did not major and write his work on marketing or on accounting or on law or medicine. He went to study philosophy, the highest forms that culture had attained in his day. He did not go because he had to dodge a draft or because he had to study Parnosa. He came because that was what his parents wanted. That's what he wanted. And that is what has colored and given strength to us at Yeshiva University and RIETS. We know that we are no less Torah for Mada and no less Mada for Torah. We are no less human for our devotion to Torah. We are no less Jewish for our commitment to understanding the Chochmos Olam. That is what we are all about. Be proud of it, encourage it, publicize it, love it. Lo na'aleh ki yachol nuchala. I'm now president, as you well know by now, for 25 years. I came here as a student 56 years ago. Now, as I near my own change of status, permit me to offer a Mizmor L'Soda, a psalm of thanksgiving, to all those who made my life fuller, if not always easier, but richer, more meaningful, more helpful, more focused, more rewarding. I learned much from my revered colleagues at Rosh Yeshiva, whose commitment and erudition never failed to astound me. I learned mitamida yosem mikulam, even more from my students. I know them, especially the students at the two upper kollalim. They're fabulous. Whenever I feel overcome by a bit of discouragement, I meet with them and I come refreshed and re-inspired. They're magnificent. They are our very promise for the future. I have confidence in them. I know that they will rise and they will conquer. They and our alumni will help usher in the renaissance of Jewish life and learning in their generation. I thank you, board members, supporters, for the unstinting generosity with which you came to the aid of RIETS and allowed it to become the most powerful and enlightened center of Harbosas HaTorah for well over a century. I thank my colleagues in the administration, vice presidents, deans, directors, staff, all of them, for their professional competence, their sacrifice of time and peace of mind, and their genuine friendship. I thank you for doing what is so often a thankless job. All of you have given me a blessed opportunity to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Am Yisrael in ways and extent I never could have imagined in my youth. You have allowed me to dedicate whatever meager talents I possess to the noblest of all causes, to the advancement of Torah, without which our people has no future. And without Jews, chas v'sholem, the world would be a grim place indeed, far more dangerous, far less interesting. Needless to say, I am deeply indebted to my beloved family. We have here the Zakan HaMishpacha, my uncle, Rabbi Joseph Baumel, Admeya V'Yesrim Shana, my 4 children, who together have attended 8 of our schools, and my 4 in-laws, the 2 sons-in-law, 2 daughters-in-law, another 8. If I add myself, you have to add 3. Well, 19 is not too bad. I have here my brother and one of my 2 sisters, who together have gone to 4 schools. My grandchildren who are here, one of them is now at Stern College, and one is coming into Stern this coming semester, and one coming into our boys' high school in the coming semester. They, all of them, are dearer to me than life itself. They have benefited from yeshiva, and yeshiva from them. I am proud of them far more than they may be proud of me. The purpose of RIETS is to create Torah, Harbosas HaTorah. And the sages told us that Torah has a further purpose. Tachlis Torah, Tachlis Chochma, Teshuva Amasim Tovim. What is the purpose of learning Torah, the purpose of the wisdom, the divine wisdom? It is to create Teshuva Amasim Tovim, or in a word, character. So permit me to conclude with a brief description of the ideal Jewish character. One must be a Baal Midas, a person of good qualities, who is modest and retiring without false humility, who aspires to enlightenment without being in the limelight, who is Ohev Shalom V'Rodev Shalom, always peaceful, never causing conflict, no lashon hara, who is utterly loyal, a Yedid Ne'aman, whose character has elegance and charm, and above all, who, as the Ramban expounds the verse, V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, you shall love the neighbor as yourself. He says, to love one's neighbor, one's fellow man as himself, means sheyav chavero b'chol inyan, kashayav es nafsho b'chol atov, to love one's friend in everything as he wants one who loves him to do him good. Ye'ohevo b'kol, should love him in all ways. Yachpos sheyizke re'yehu ovlo ba'osher v'nechosim b'kavod v'chachma. He desires only that his beloved friend be blessed with wealth and property and dignity and knowledge and wisdom. V'lo sheyishva elav, not that the friend should have the same as he, be equal to him. Avol yechafes belibo la'olam shehu yoser mimenu b'chol tova. He wants the friend always to be better, to have more and be more. I have had the exquisite blessing of learning from such a friend, benefiting from that friend for over 47 years in love and devotion. I refer to the wonderful, gracious, giving mother of my children and grandmother of my grandchildren, Shali v'sholachem shalahi. Where is she? Thank you, Mandela. I apologize. She warned me not to say anything about her, so I said very little today. And for all of you, again, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. You've given me far more cover than I deserve. You've showed friendship, genuine friendship. May the Lord B'nai Shalom bless all of you. May you have great nachas from your children and children's children. May you proceed in health and vigor, creatively, in doing good work and good things, mitzvahs and maas and tovim, ad meya v'yesrim shana.